Sirens by J. Francis. Chapter 2. Looking back to the room, Jacob thought it might be time to clean up a bit and start work. He pushed his things over in one corner so they didn't get trampled the rest of the day. That's the good thing about working at home, he thought. I don't ever have to get all dressed up. Shit, I don't get dressed at all unless Deb is around. What good would an office do me? Who else has a TV on their desk and a junior high 50-yard dash honorable mention trophy as a paperweight? Jacob doesn't have a computer, so he has to remember the ideas as they come. Sometimes, the first hour of his day is an attempt to start off where he was the day prior. He wants to be a machine, a human machine, wildly churning out new results from new uploaded visions. I don't trust notes. One can never get enough down to really make the idea come alive again, he tells himself. Every day, reinventing the wheel, because no one has ever been where I'm going. Today, his hands were more white than usual from the slight chill in the room. The dark hair on his knuckles stands in stark contrast to how dainty they look otherwise. He thinks himself a philosopher, neglecting his body to what he believes to be more worthy pursuits. He figures, it doesn't matter what his place is like, it keeps him alive. Perhaps this is the only way one should live, a present-day ascetic. Without pain or pride, this is my life. The newspaper stand, right before the corner of 92nd, on Jacob's lucky far side, is the first on the strip. Within a few blocks, there are 4 other places to get the Chronicle, yet those who walk on the north side and stop at 92nd receive spirituality. They take their change and offer it as a prayer to a young woman who works the stand. From her vibrant body, they unknowingly drink the spring of humanity. The passion, elation, and sorrow that makes her more human than the rest of us is passed on like a cold. At least that's how Jacob sees it. It mocks his examination with its simplicity. He wonders how he can be so taken back by the slightest curve of a back or angle of the jawline. Her name is Emily, M for short. Probably not the name on her birth certificate, but the one that Jacob has given her. I only name people that have something unique, he justifies. It's a strange thing about names. From day one, before parents know anything about their newborn, usually long before the actual birth, a name is chosen. From then on, it is our identity. Not our true identity, of course. But outside of 92nd, it doesn't matter. I choose to call her M, not for any other reason than the way it would roll off my tongue if she were to hear me say it. It's soft, with drastic high point at the beginning and the end, with a longer, low struggle contained between. That struggle, those low points are in front of me. They stack new additions and throw away yesterday's news. When Jacob does find a time to make her acquaintance, he will address her as she is, M, then purposely forget whatever name she corrects him with. He returns to his golden calf. Whatever M allows herself to be called, it is insufficient for who she truly is. Before the urbanites make their way down the sidewalks, under my nose and under my observation, she exits my building from her first-floor apartment and heads across the street. While the streetlights wait in line with punch cards and relax their shine, she unlocks the gate of Lenny's and begins to swap out old papers for those soon to be delivered. Most people carve out their own spot, but I believe M has slashed the concrete landscape and been left with an open-air cubicle. Hacked the sidewalk until our hands were nothing but stumps. From there, she makes a living and tries to grab opportunities as they pass. The tones from a box mean a special alert has just broken in. Jacob has tuned in. Scrolling across the bottom of his screen. And on the rise. Evil is on the rise. Evil is on the rise. Evil is on the... Scrolls across. Anthony, another whom Jacob watched on his way to work, was never too far from death. Real death, not some metaphorical bullshit. It would have been a suicidal sight that would make one vomit from deep down, spilling their bagel with cream cheese over themselves. Yet, so far, he hadn't put a shotgun in his mouth or laid on the tracks. The thing that held him back was the fear of losing. When Anthony dies, it will be with a final breath and the consolation that he had been beaten by a bigger foe, time. He had killed, albeit indirectly, and he knew that as strong as he was, in time, he would be killed as well. It's the nature of being, he consoled himself. It's the spiked ball on the teeter-totter of life, waiting to fly up and crush the body on the other side. It was both disconcerting and freeing for Anthony to know that he too would go. When it's my time, he wrote in college, it'll be with understanding and one hell of a fight. Anthony lived as if he could make a difference. Regardless of what he believed to be probabilistically true, his attitude was one of effect. His castle had been built on the backs of monsters which he himself had slain. He wanted so badly to believe it was by his hand his fairy tale would be written. He would have gladly killed every person he knew if it meant at last he could relax. But there was a problem. He needed one, at least one other soul to be proud of him as he stood among the dispatched bodies. Often he would wake up sweating from his dreams. In this REM reality, he would be 10 feet tall, standing with an axe or a medieval wooden hammer. He would just stand looking at the sunset, and after, see that he had just climbed a mountain of disembodied parts still grabbing for his ankles. Every person he was stronger than, people he pitied, people like Jacob. There's one last person who needs mentioning when telling the story of 91st through 93rd. Mr. Blevins didn't walk with the others in the morning. In fact, it was rare that anyone saw him move. He would mostly just sit on the corner with other bums. If humans could be characterized like different species of insects or fungi or underwater walking sticks, Mr. Blevins would be described by someone with a Leonard Nimoy voice. A former member of the Homo sapien family, living as a parasite on the kindness of others. That's what Leonard would be told to say. Here, he'd continue as the camera moved in, we have a beautiful example of street man. People often spoke about Mr. B like he wasn't there, but not for long. If ignored, he would parody their fears. Mr. B didn't own a home, he didn't wash regularly, and more so, he didn't care. He was smart, but not academic. He knew of philosophy, but not how a changing interest rate affects mortgages. Of course, no house, no washing, no mortgage. In this way, one decision often makes many. He spoke to everyone like they were the only person in the world, maybe old friends from a summer camp he never went to. He made you like him that way. It's almost impossible not to like someone who shows a complete interest in what you're saying. Suits and skirts would gladly indulge him in a short conversation about gentrification. Bums in rags would listen to him preach about what to drink and when. But more than anything else that marked Mr. Blevins as a flower amongst weeds were his socks. Under his sandals and over his feet he wore stockings. Not the type of stockings worn by old women, but stockings that were once hung from the chimney with care. Bright red, green, and gold stockings, 2 different ornaments from some unknown family in a Christmas past. Passers-by would smirk at the bunched-up toes, obviously much too big for a man's foot, and tops that were held taut by safety pins and buttons. The interest of the people of 92nd was that the stockings were always clean and bright, like he took care to wash them, but not himself. He looked as if he had never cut his hair, but his Christmas stocking socks were spick and span. Either a slap in the face to an overindulgent culture, or more likely, a perseverated quirk of a lunatic. That was Mr. B. He was part of the street, too. It was widely assumed he used drugs, but no one ever blames a man without a home for doing whatever he can to capture a good night's sleep. He roamed around like a streak of celestial blue accidentally thrown onto a palette of mostly drab colors. He was back at it again today. With a big sign and a story behind it, he spoke to the people, gave them advice, gave them a lecture, a rant. He was right below the apartment window today, so there was no chance for Jacob to be entertained, but he heard the interested crowd repeating what he had written. Cross the street from me. I want to see jaywalking. People loved these commands because it broke up their day. So even though today's sign merely pushed them out of the normal, law-abiding natures, they dropped $1 or 2 in the hat and took over the street. Maybe Mr. B got high as a kite that night. Cars were stopped for more than an hour. Everyone knew Mr. Blevins and had the feeling that someday he would play a part in their lives. Cross the street from me. I want to see jaywalking, buzzed around dinner table conversations.